Hi guys, I'm Steph, co-founder of Avallen, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit more about our lovely little brand. Tim unfortunately isn't here. We're in Amsterdam. He's isolated, he's not feeling too well, but we're doing the best we can to communicate with you guys, and hopefully we can see you all face to face in the near future. But for now, you're gonna just have to deal with me digitally. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why we created Avallen and why for us it's so important to be positive in everything that we do. We just started the brand last year. We launched on World Bee Day. And ultimately, Tim and I believe that companies can and should have a positive impact on the environment, which is the reason why we basically decided to combine our life savings and our experience so far in the industry to create Avallen. Some of you may know Tim. Tim is also the founder of Healthy Hospo, which is a sort of education and wellness platform for a happier, healthier hospitality industry. Tim and I met quite a few years back when we were both working for another big drinks group. I myself have sort of 12, 15 years now in the drinks industry. I was raised in France, in Burgundy, even though I sound like this. And I've always been really, really passionate about AOCs, the Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée, passionate about terroir and about the agriculture at the base of any spirit. And Tim, aside from being a health and wellness guru, I think what gets him out of bed every day is his desire for a better planet. He is an absolute eco-warrior through and through. He's been vegan for 20 plus years. And this is very much the combination of both our passions and both our vision for what we're striving to be, which is the world's most environmentally positive spirits brand. And our main goal with this is to inspire millions to pour with purpose. And, that starts with guys like yourselves. So again, thanks for taking the time to listen to this. So what is Avallen? Avallen is ultimately a Calvados. Now, what is Calvados? Calvados is French apple brandy, specifically from Normandy, France. Now, this category has been around for a couple of hundred years, but it's seen very little to no innovation. And a lot of the liquids that you can currently find on the market are not quite as fresh and as crisp and as vibrant as Avallen. We set out ultimately not to launch the Calvados brand, but to launch what we believe to be the most sustainable spirit. I say sustainable, it's not a word that we love. Sustainability as we know it has failed us. I'm sure you'll agree. We're on a bit of the brink of economic and ecological collapse. Our first sort of question was, right, what is the most sustainable raw material, the base of a spirit to make a drink from? And that journey, it took us all around the world ultimately and into some sort of deep analytical research. And we looked at kind of some key base materials: cereal, grain ultimately, sugarcane, agave, and apples. And that takes you across 4 categories. Let's say sort of whiskey, vodka, and gin for the sake of grain, tequila, and then you've got rum and Calvados. And we found out that 70% of a product's environmental impact actually came from that raw material. So a lot of companies are looking at packaging and recyclability, which is good and important, but that's just 30% of the equation. What we really need to look at is what are we making our drinks from? And that analysis that we did was across 4 metrics. We looked at biodiversity, CO2 emissions, water usage, and pesticide abuse. And across the scale, on every 4 metrics, Calvados kept coming out as number 1, which basically led us on an incredible trip to Normandy. We got to taste tons of beautiful liquids and ultimately find the perfect partner for us, which is Distillerie Coquerel, and put together Avallen. Avallen means apple tree in Old Cornish, which is actually where Tim's from, Cornwall. And Cornwall and Normandy share a lot of cultural heritage. So we did try Avalon, but Avalon, well, it was already taken by a Toyota, so we didn't think that was going to be the right one. But Avalon means Isle of Apples, and it's actually a small village in France, in Burgundy. But Avallen felt like the right name for us, and as you can see in the graphic design, it's almost growing like a tree. And I think that's a really important thing when we talk about Avallen. Avallen is about trees, apples, orchards. They are trees, and trees are CO2 sinks. And that's a huge reason why we talk about environmental positivity. So Avallen, the liquid. Avallen is made from 40 varieties of apples. And those apples grow in Normandy, France, in a region called La Moche, which is pesticide free. Once those apples are harvested, and by the way, they're not picked, they have to fall off the tree. That's one of the strict rules in the AOC of Calvados. They're brought to the distillery. Once at the distillery, they're washed. That's actually the only time we use any water aside from bottling Avallen. And once washed, immediately pressed to make a juice. That juice is then fermented. Really important thing to know, it's a natural fermentation, so it can take up to 2 months outside in large steel vats. Once fermented, you would have a cider, so to speak, and that cider is then distilled. In our case, using column stills, which allows to keep the freshness and the vibrancy of the fruit. And once distilled, seeded and aged in French oak barrels. Again, AOC specific, needs to be French oak. We use a mixture of different sized barrels, which allows us to keep a really nice freshness and crisp kind of vanilla and honey blossom or honeysuckle nose, but on the palate, you're not going to get any kind of oaky or woodiness. It's going to stay really clean and crisp. Now, we age Avallen for 2 to 3 years. We then bottle it with no additives, no colouring, no additional sugar. I think we're probably the only ones doing that currently in Calvados. And as we like to say, Avallen is made with nothing but apples, water and thyme. So that's 70% of our environmental impact. But then it's important to look at the rest, right? So what's that 30%? Packaging, marketing, culture, route to market, logistics, transportation, all of that, obviously. And if you want to be as environmentally responsible as possible, or as we like to say, be positive, then you need to look at the entirety of your company and the culture. So we chose the most lightweight bottle available to us. This is just under 500 grams when empty. We basically printed Avallen on apple pulp paper. We're the first and only brand to do this currently. And that was, again, a really important educational piece about zero waste. And then we use no toxic varnishes or dyes on the label. So there's a vegetable dyes, and then again, no plastic and unnecessary process. And we've won quite a few awards for this, which has been really nice. The Spirits business gave us the Masters Medal and overall winner for innovation in packaging last year. And we also won Green Launch of the Year by the Drinks business. So that was really exciting. So we launched May of 2019 on World Bee Day. And I've mentioned be positive a few times. When we created the brand, we knew it had to have a mission. And ultimately, our mission is to inspire people to pour with purpose. But for that to be tangible and kind of digestible at a consumer level, it felt important to create something that people could really understand. And the flight of the bees is absolutely crucial and fundamental. The bee has been announced as the % most important species vital to our survival. Bees are the most efficient pollinators and responsible for 70+% of all our global crops. So if you like tomatoes and coffee and lime, then probably a bee was behind the pollination of that. And of course, they are very much important when it comes to our French apples. Wild bees will pollinate up to 600 to 1,000 individual blossoms on one apple tree alone. And without them, we wouldn't have Avallen. So for every bottle we sell, we currently donate 50 cents in the UK to the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, quite simply because Tim and I aren't experts and we don't have the resource and the team to go out and do the amazing work that they're doing. So for now, we're looking to support them. But we have another commitment, which is to plant over 10,000 flowering plants for the bees in our first 3 years of existence. Now, why are flowering plants so important for bees? The reason wild bees are in decline basically is down to urbanization and abuse of pesticides. So the #1 thing we can do to help them is to plant flowers, which is their food. So we believe that anything we do from a marketing or an activation perspective has to be purposeful. So these are our Avallen bee bombs. They're biodegradable hand grenades filled inside with some wildflower seeds. All you need to do is wet them, throw them, and grow them. And they're just really fun and again, a really beautiful way for us to tell this message. I mentioned to you before that Avallen is made of nothing but apples, water, and thyme. Again, don't take my word for it. We've teamed up with the amazing guys at Provenance. And so we're working with them using blockchain technology, which I think is a fancy word for using a QR code. But basically through the QR code, you get taken onto their website, and that's where the blockchain starts. It's basically an online digital ledger. And on there, you can find our laboratory analysis, for example. You can also find the donations that we've done for the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, amongst other things. So I really invite you to check them out, provenance.org. And you can find out a little bit more about why for us it's so important to be transparent. Transparency is quite different than traceability. Traceability is a company knowing, but transparency is a company showing. So to wrap things up, from a kind of drinks perspective, I was going to be sipping this and I've forgotten to this whole time I've been talking to you. This is just an Avallen with ginger ale, but our kind of lead serve is an Avallen and tonic. There is really no steal to share from the Calvados market. You know, we really need to grow completely outside of our category. So we're looking to sort of position this as an environmentally positive alternative to a G&T. So Avallen and tonic with just a little apple wedge is beautiful, but it works really nicely with ginger as well, which is a little bit more autumnal. However, Avallen is beautiful shaken up into a sour or a fruity cocktail. Fantastic, stirred down into an old fashioned. It's super, super versatile. So you're all invited to play around and let us know what you think. If you'd like to follow us on social, it's at Avallen Spirits on Instagram and Twitter. And our website's also www.avallenspirits.com. And there's a couple of recipes on there and a bit more information about the wild bees. And if you ever need anything from us, then please get in touch through our website. You can write to us at thebees@avallenspirits.com and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Keep safe, take care, look after your loved ones. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and remember to be positive.